Hey everybody, I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Spencer.
And we're the Movie Bros.
Coming at you with a user-requested movie, Boogie.
So Spencer, what'd you think?
So this movie was a little bit different. It was not one that I'd heard about beforehand. I kind of thought it was an indie film. It was written and directed by Eddie Huang, starred Taylor Takahashi as the main character Alfred, and a shout out to the character of Monk, who was played by Pop Smoke. May he rest in peace. It's kind of a coming of age tale, and I think it does so in a kind of a fun way. Taylor Takahashi plays the character again, Alfred, who is this Asian American aspiring basketball star who's in high school. He's trying to make his way to the collegiate realm with the scholarship to some college because his family doesn't come from wealth, and so it would be difficult for him to go to school otherwise. And just it kind of goes through him navigating this high school process and with all the different difficulties that are there. One thing that I like though is that they kind of have the story within a story a little bit. In his English class, he's studying Catcher in the Rye, which is this kind of coming of age tale, and then he has this kind of coming of age tale. It's clever. I liked it.
Yeah, and I think they did that throughout the movie in a couple areas where they're trying to close the loop on things. They shoot some stuff in the very beginning, which becomes reminiscent again towards the end of the movie. And like you said, yeah, they're talking about in his AP English class a coming of age story, which is exactly what this movie is about.
Right.
Where it follows this young guy trying to just make it in the world, trying to put his best foot forward.
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of difficulty. I think that this movie did not do well on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it had like a 43% score. We'll kind of talk a little bit about why, but I do want to say that I think that it may not just be relatable, but I thought this movie was actually quite good. I think it is very apropos for just a lot of things that are going on in the world today, especially in our country here. There's a lot of hate crimes against Asian Americans, which we obviously do not stand for. And it was nice to see a Asian character be at the forefront and kind of have some of this tradition and cultural background woven into the story, where it's not something that many of us might be able to relate to unless we were part of that culture.
Well, and I would say too that with it being a coming of age story set in modern day time, it can be a little hard to relate to the dialogue that young upcoming adults have with each other, right? And so it can be a little off-putting. I did kind of settle into the rhythm of their conversations as the movie progressed, and I could see why some people might have fell out of favor with the movie because of that.
I completely agree. I mean, I happen to think that in general, I have friends and like groups of friends where this type of dialogue is more commonplace. But even then, I mean, and maybe it's just me being a little out of touch, like there were certain things where like I had to be like, what is he trying to say? What does that mean? And that may not sit well with everybody, right? If you're watching a movie and you can't really follow the dialogue, you're going to get lost. So.
Yeah, there's definitely a rawness to the conversation, which I think is real. I think there was a realness to the movie as well. So it was raw, it was real. I think it's a prime example of how, kids who are about to become adults are transitioning in life and how they interact with other people.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, this also, like, to be completely upfront and honest, the character is a little bit hood, a little street. So some of the dialogue may not even resonate with people of their age group as well, because unless that's a background that you share, you may not relate to all the kind of slang terminology that they use. So
yeah, absolutely.
I acknowledge that was something a little bit difficult to follow about the movie and maybe why some people didn't like it. But I agree with you. It did make the movie a little bit raw, but it also made it more real. It didn't feel, it felt like this could have been someone's real life story.
Yeah, like a docuseries.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I thought it was also interesting too that for Eddie Huang, this being his directorial debut, he wrote the screenplay. If you guys aren't familiar with his previous stuff, he is an author. He's a lawyer. He's a restaurateur. He's an entrepreneur. This guy, he's like everything. But he also wrote the book that inspired Fresh Off the Boat from NBC. So he's got some writing chops. You can see it in here. You could see that he's done some some background on it. It does feel still, like I said, kind of like a docuseries, like an indie version of a film.
Yeah.
And I liked it as well.
Yeah, it's fun getting to see him. He actually plays the character. I think it's I don't remember
the uncle.
Uncle Jackie. There's a bunch of uncles in this, but Uncle Jackie. So it's kind of funny seeing him in it as well. Like when directors give himself like this is like a very minor part. But yeah, overall, I think it was a. There's a lot to unpack in the movie. Both from like a cultural perspective, looking at the struggles of this individual. I mean, so he comes from a relatively poor family. You see that they're kind of behind on their bills, and he's kind of looked upon as, or supposed to be, the savior of this family.
Yeah.
And both his mother and father have very different personalities themselves, but also different directions that they want him to take his life. And I think there's a recurrent theme throughout the movie where their characters are asking him, what do you want? What is it that you feel is the right decision? Other people can't make that decision for you. They can tell you what they want you to do. But at the end of the day, he needed to kind of pick his own path.
Well, I think it can be hard for any young adult whose parents, and I think all parents want their kids to do better than them, which I think is a simplistic way of saying what was happening in this movie.
Yep.
But the pressure of trying to make those right decisions can be challenging for any young adult.
Especially at such a high level. I mean, this is someone who's aspiring to play in the NBA at some point, and that's really tough. Other things I liked about the movie, I really enjoyed the soundtrack. I thought that they had a really nice flow to it. The movie overall for me actually was a little bit slow. It's only about an hour and a half, but
it was slow.
It's not action-packed in the traditional sense. So it does kind of progress at a slow rate, and I felt like the music kind of helped move it forward even during some of the slower scenes.
Yeah, because they're building so much backstory and current story, it was slow.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it did move you along. I did like the soundtrack. I did like the way the movie looked. Mm-hmm. I love the way the movie felt as well. So I think there was a lot of pros to the movie.
I agree. For me, at the end of the day, this was a solid film. I think you should check it out. I think there's a lot of little things for people to get for this one. If this type of story, if kind of having that street background doesn't resonate with you at all, it might be a little bit hard to follow. And I completely acknowledge that. But I think this was a really interesting coming of age tale for people who are now coming of age.
Yeah, absolutely.
No longer us, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right, so should we get to it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What'd you give this one?
Again, I liked the movie. I thought that there was some really funny dialogue. I don't necessarily think that the acting was kind of snuff, but none of these are big name actors.
Correct.
I liked the overall story. I thought that the character was interesting enough, and kind of watching him navigate all of these different pressures and be very real and open and honest about it throughout the film. In a discussion he has with his girlfriend, he kind of says, I've got this person counting on me, this person counting on me, and I failed all of them, and that's a lot of pressure for a young adult. I liked how real and raw this movie was. I'm going to give this one a 7.5.
I like the movie too. I think it had a lot of pros. I did feel like some of it was a little too raw and could be hard to relate to. For me, I'm going to give this movie a 6.
All right, you heard it here on the Movie Bros. Let us know if there's any other movies you'd like us to review. We're happy to check out some new ones. This is a great find. Thank you. I don't think that we ever would have actually watched this movie, so I really do appreciate whoever left that comment.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Let me give a shout out to Benny. Benny is the one who recommended us watching this movie.
Awesome. Thanks again, Benny.
All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Movie Bros out.